Well, here we are again. Wow, it seems to be so quick. It was like it was just Monday. Here it is, another Monday again. And that's it, time has flows. And we need to realize that 365 days are going to come upon us so quickly. And we would have just been looking at New Year, and for some of us, we would be looking at the whole issue of celebrations of birthdays and anniversaries, and it's like, wow. I have a friend who just celebrated, well, are celebrating their first anniversary today, and he was like, wow, they just got married yesterday, this last year, 365 days. And so we are thankful that we can work out 365 days, excuse me here. You know, yes, 365 days worked that out so nicely. How are you working out your 365 days with your family in your home? And that is really where we are, looking at the whole issue of disappointment and understanding the realities of what is happening with us as a family within the home. The last podcast, I'm sure you would have had a lot of things to think about, a lot of things that you didn't maybe realize, put in perspective, begin to have discussions, conversations about, hey, why are we where we are, and how are we where we are, and how do we bring this into a greater dimension of success, which is, of course, relationships. Maybe I should say better relationships. Now, mother, father, children in a home, and we looked at the fact that there were the issues, or there could have been the issues of disappointment of birth, whether it was sex, whether it's maybe a disability, the child may be having the wrong complexion, the hairstyle, the acceptance by in-laws and grandparents, etc. There's lots of things. And we also looked at the education system, which brought us into the place where we realized by the time the child turns 3, we are wondering which school to put them in. Why? Because we have a particular environment that they must excel in. Notwithstanding, the child's needs may never be addressed. And so the child may go through a school for 7 years plus and then come into SCA, or what we call common interest, or what used to be called common interest, now called SCA in some countries. Some people are still calling common interest in Barbados, I think, in some islands. And there's different terms, but it's that exam that assesses you to go from primary into secondary school. And we have a disappointment at that time too, not just of what has happened to them during the 7 years, but also looking at where they're going to go. And when the results come out, we are again disappointed as to getting to that school. No. So we want transfers, we are upset, and we do not realize that we are creating emotions that are negative, unproductive within the child. Again, the child's needs are not met. The child's needs are not even assessed. And so we were ended up last broadcast when we were looking at how, because of the education system, there has been a lack of skill development within that child. We haven't looked at the child to see where the child is, or learning styles, audiovisual, kinesthetic, musical, etc., and to see where that child fits, which school really helps the child to go forward. And so there are these disappointments. We also look at the rationale of siblings within the home. This sibling is brighter than, or more intelligent than, or more articulate than. We always seem to be comparing, and that creates its own chaos. May I use a new word here today, crisis? Because we also look at the fact that, hey, I could throw a child into crisis as well as I am in crisis, because I am not seeing the kind of development I want to see with my child. So therefore, I'm in crisis. See, and then we argue: should I go? Should I have gone to that school? Should I? I didn't want the child. Wow. Now, let's pause here and see if we could twist a little bit here and look at the whole issue of status. What do we want for this child? And that status, again, has to do with friends. I'm disappointed you have that as a friend. Don't go by this friend. Don't talk to this one. Those are the kind of people, they will lead you and I'll bring you back. We have all kinds of cliches and idioms that tells our children how to be separatists, how to be aloof, how to be exclusive. But yet we want the child to have a very balanced concept of life. So that we are creating environments that are not really aligning with the child's psyche, the child's development, that brings out these skills, that establishes a proper status quo. Now, who defines that status quo? And where is it taking us? Usually the parents will define that status quo. Is it that the parents have to do that, or is that the child's opportunity to say, these are my friends? Can we find a way of not being disappointed by relating to our children and seeing what they think of status quo and how do they make choices? I pause there. Choices. What? And because these choices, they're now beginning to make. They didn't make a choice at SEA. They were able to make some choice, some, not all, at what we call CSEC, the examination that assesses you to go forward into higher learning. The choice of subjects. We may not have given them some choice because we already told them that they ought to be a particular profession. So that profession needs to have these kinds of subject areas that are going to be relevant for the development and of educational progress within that scheme of thought or scheme of profession. So the child chooses, but the child is going to come to a place where the child will have to make decisions, especially in higher learning. When that timetable comes to you, you have to make decisions about what subjects or what courses to choose to fulfill your program. And then you make choices about what you really want to do with your future in terms of job, into the profession, in terms of work. And those three things are different, of course. We're not dealing with that today. But we want to look at that context where all mankind is heading to that job. And let me use the word job for today. Where we have to earn money in order to exist, in order to live, in order to have anything in the future. How do we amass the assets if we don't have money? So in all, maybe from 3 years of age, you are pushing your child into a space where the child will have that kind of money or equity for a better life or better living. And when that is not a realized reality or realized experience, we are surely disappointed. So, how do we work that? How are we establishing that process to bring us into that place where we are going to allow our child to be successful without disappointments? How do we work that? How do we work that without hearing the child hear, I am disappointed in you. You disappointed me. We thought that this is what you're going to do. We had a mind. You always show the prowess in this particular area. You know, as I speak here, I have had conversations with one of my sons who he has a skill, and I always feel that this skill is something that still can be developed. But I am not disappointed that he didn't go that way. I would have loved to see him maybe work it for his advantage, because he does have a skill. His skill has improved. But he has seen it fit to find other avenues to show his prowess. And that's fine. Now, I could have been disappointed and keep harassing him. Sometimes I feel the day I thought I was, because I brought it back again. Why don't you? Why am I going down that road, Kenneth? Maybe I am disappointed. Or maybe I am saying that I want you to revisit the thought. But truly, I'm not disappointed in his life. I'm not disappointed in choices he has made. I would like to help him to create certain dynamics, perspectives that will cause him to be more proactive or more engaging to find that success and that joy, may I put in that word here, in what he does and where he's going. So that gives us different dynamic in terms of how we are addressing the issue of difference from. So here am I being an expectant father or expectant parent, expecting my children to have a particular status quo, particular job, particular lifestyle, but yet as I go along with them, I'm seeing that it's not what I like. Can I decide to change my expectations and fit it into the outcomes so that I would eliminate the disappointment? Is that something we could work with? I think we can. Now, you see, when it comes to saying we can, it's all about money, because they're going on to choose a career. They're going to want to have purchases like car and house and other assets that are meaningful. How are they going to service these ambitions and these interests financially? What is going to sustain them? It has to be the job. It has to be, okay, let's say entrepreneurship, business. But whether it's business, whether it's a job that you get employed with a firm or company, it is still a matter of you working the dynamics, using the instruments, using the skills to perform. Because performance is now going to be the thing. Now, the key thing about performance, again, is that yes, I can overcome my disappointment in what I thought it should be and agree with what you are. But along the line, when I begin to see frustrations, or I begin to see differences in choices, or a continuum of change, parents are still concerned. And by the way, I am not just talking about children here now who are teenagers. We have gone into adulthood, young adulthood and adulthood, and parents are still having crises, still having disappointed moments with that kind of choice, or a choice that does not suit a particular frame in the parent's mind. When we talk about job, that's one thing. But when we go, where we could shift and say, what about social skills in terms of interrelating? What about ambition? What about productivity and intellectual stimulation and individual development in terms of establishing particular structures and systems within your life? Are those real? So that we are not always free as parents to say, to a child in their 20s or 30s, let's do, why don't you? We feel that we are infringing. But let them come home and say they were fired, or let them come home and your daughter come and say she's pregnant or not married, or she doesn't have home, etc. Or your son say, I'm expecting a child. Those kinds of things, because of our culture and background, jars us. We would have expected our daughters or sons to be married and then have children. We would have expected them to have a particular job, that gives particular lifestyle, because in that job you choose friends, you choose interests, you continue to develop educationally, socially, financially, intellectually. But all that seems now to be frustrated because of these experiences now being shared. That in my mind is negative, but it's not about a matter about being negative. The child, the daughter, the son is going through this. And the days are going. The months are going. Something has to be done. Something has to be realized. How do we establish functionality for my child with this kind of scenario? Unwedded mother, single parent. Wow, where is the child going to live? Oh, maybe in my house. Ooh, another generation. Shifting of ideals, shifting of situations, house rules, house experiences. There are so many dynamics that we didn't even cater for. You know why I'm pausing? Because I want you to finish it. We not cater for that. Now assails us, now slaps us in the face, and we have to abide. How disappointed I am. Oh no, I'm not disappointed. But you see, when the child comes in in that scenario, or let's say you may have a grandchild coming from a son, or there's a loss of job, and you have to help now financially, or to try and help your child to redefine. When the months goes on, and there's certain incidentals or decisions that come out of those incidentals, how do we fit? Could you, mommy or daddy, could you keep the child? I have to go out. Could you do this? I have no time. Now I have to sit down and reorganize my life. Am I willing to not murmur? Am I willing to agree in order to continue to foster better relations and an improved sense of value to my child without disappointment? So what I'm doing here today is helping us remove disappointment and to learn to accept. But in accepting, it's not that you are encouraging wrong. You are helping to build, or rather rebuild, functionality, rebuild esteem, rebuild awareness, rebuild the child's sense of worth. Because all the things I mentioned, like job loss, pregnancy, wrong friends, or etc., those are crises within your child's life. Disappointing to you, but crises to them. And so therefore, we have to come onto some common plane where we can begin to assess the way forward. So, I am asking, in terms of relations, how do we assist the child to go forward? Recommendation: let's practice not being disappointed. Let us not decide that because I have this background, culturally, traditionally, my child ought to fit into that. Let's begin to say, my child is different from me and my past. Let me learn to embrace what I have, and let me help from my own experiences with my own wealth of knowledge. How can I help redesign, reaffirm your future? Can I ask you to do that? Because it is important for you to work out and to come into those conversations and to communicate with your child, so that the child will feel a sense of identity and that kind of belonging. Because the disappointment can push the child further into a space where, if you're saying that they didn't make a good decision now, will they ever be able to without your help? So we have to learn how to say, hey, I am not going to be disappointed. I'm going to be enriched by difference. And you know, the Chinese character for crisis is the same one for opportunity. So we are using the crisis to bring opportunities of togetherness, of cohesiveness, of engaging, and bringing that kind of synergy that would cause both parties to grow together. How do you think we're ending up here? Next. So it's important now to see how that child could rebuild their lives successfully and understand where they are going in their future. So we have been looking at the whole context, the fact that there is a reality of disappointments within the family. Yes, from birth, as we did to the last broadcast, all the way. But tonight we've seen how the child is no longer a baby. The child is no longer a toddler. The child is no longer a school child. The child is no longer a teenager. The child is growing. The child is an adult. The child is going into mid-adult life, into later life. The child is going day by day, 365 every year. We change in numbers and we are moving on. And within that moving on, there are these obvious realities that we got to learn how to overcome to maintain living. As a counseling psychologist, you find the word disorder, which has to do with functionality again and behavior. You have an issue of maybe depression, anxiety, and other kinds of disorders, whether they are psychosis, from a psychosis, from a personality disorder, and different categories. We won't go into that. But you see, why I'm mentioning that we sometimes want to label and we want to diagnose without realizing that the diagnosis, you can't just say this is what causes now. We could look back and say there's a series of things happening from the time the child is birthed to the present day, whether in their 30s or 40s, that would have impacted the child's psyche, and therefore would impact decision making, would therefore impact problem solving. So we want you to know today that it is important to engage the child, learning how to understand needs, so that even at age 30, 40, we are still understanding what are the needs of this child. That brings me into a place where I can help re-establish. And there are other issues. Some people may have been married in their 20s and divorced by 30, so they may be widowed. And so that new decisions have to be made. How are we going to sustain the future? How are we going to look? We are going to always be parents. And we could always say we're disappointed. No, we have to learn how to work out the differences. But that's the choice I make. I train you, I teach you this thing. Yes, you did, mommy. Yes, you did. You're still my mommy, you're still my daddy. But don't be disappointed. Could you hear that coming from your child? Or could you hear that coming from you? Saying, yes, I did make this child. Sheep don't make goat. Let's see how the sheep has made a sheep, and let's see how the sheep, because of environment and nurturing and nutrition, etc., would have made a different personality than the one I am, but yet it's my child. Let's see how we could preserve the family for tomorrow. Let's see how we could have differences and then work with them. Let us see how we need not be disappointed in the family context, and let us see how we can take this and begin to serve better as parents to our children. I want you to be real about this. I want you to understand where we are going. I know that you want your children to be successful. I know you want your children to be top of the line. I was saying, that is my child. Oh, she's after me, a chip of the old block. But we sometimes only do that chip thing when everything seems nice. But come with something, hey, it is still a chip from the old block. So let's see what the block has to offer. And let's see what the chip is doing, because the chip is off the block. And let's see how we can bring back the chip and put it on the block, and see how we can bring that order and reunite and establish functionality within the family. Ladies, gentlemen, children, teenagers, whoever you are listening, it's important for us to realize that as we live, we cannot decide what is not going to happen will happen. We have to learn how to embrace the movement of the wind, the movement of the day, the movement of time, and to see how we are going to be embracing what it brings to us and learn to go forward. So let's put away disappointment as parents with children, as children with parents, as children who are going to become parents. And let's see how we can work this together. So let me start off with saying, grannies, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, let's all not try to determine the how, but let's try to determine the very process of change, and to see how that how could be positively attributed to successful family life. God bless you. Dr. Niles signing off here, and remember, we are one.